Hi guys, welcome back. So today we're going to start talking about passive transport. And what you're going to need is this note sheet that you picked up earlier today. Okay, well ultimately at the end you can attach it in your notebook by gluing down the back of it onto page like 69 or 70. Okay, so today we're going to talk about passive transport, and that involves three different types of transport. So one is called diffusion, one is called osmosis, and one is called facilitated diffusion. And the reason this is so important is because it does not require energy. Okay? So for the first part of this lesson today, you do not need your notes. You just simply need to listen. Okay? So I'll tell you when you're going to take your notes on the inside of your note sheet. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the function of the cell membrane. So remember, this is just a quick review on cell membrane. Remember that the cell membrane separates the inside of the cell to the outside of the cell, okay? And it's the gatekeeper, so it allows certain things in and certain things cannot come in, certain things can't leave the cell. And so we called that selectively permeable. That was a term you needed to know, okay? All of this allows the body to maintain this happy place where it wants to be, called homeostasis. It's this balance, so it maintains body temperature. You have a regular body temperature that you always have, normal body temperature, 98.6, give or take a degree or two. It maintains normal pH in the body. It maintains the right amount of oxygen, right amount of carbon dioxide, right amount of water inside the cell, nutrients, that type of thing. So all of that is called homeostasis, this balance, this happy place that your body wants to be in. So again, a picture of the cell membrane here. There's all sorts of stuff sticking in and out of the cell membrane. Remember, we worked with the bubbles. Things can go in, things can come out of it, just like the lab we did. We're going to talk about these protein channels here. They're going to be really important, these big like pillow-looking things, okay? And we'll get into that. All right, so cell membrane, just as a quick review. Now again, cell transport. There are two different types. There's passive and there's active. The first one we're going to talk about today is passive transport, so that's all you have to remember. It is like going down a hill on skates or a skateboard, right? So you take it and you just start going down the hill. There's no energy required to do this, okay? The opposite of that would be active transport. In an active transport, it requires energy, so it would be like pushing up the hill, right? So if you had roller skates on, rollerblades, skateboard, to get up the hill is a lot harder than to come down the hill. So I want you to try and remember that as we go through these two different types. Passive transport, no energy is required within your body. It just happens, okay? And it happens because of something called a concentration gradient. So there is if these blue little circles are molecules, we would say there's a higher concentration over here, and down here there's a lower concentration. In passive transport, molecules move from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. We say it's moving down the gradient. Okay, like you on skates going down a hill, so it's going down the gradient, no energy is required. Okay. Equilibrium. So all of these molecules are moving, and they're moving ultimately until they reach an equilibrium. If we have a higher concentration of molecules right here, they spread out until they reach equilibrium. You know this because when you're in the hallway or in the boys' or girls' locker room and somebody sprays Axe cologne or spray, it spreads through the entire locker room, making you gag, right? Some of you, you know who you are. Yes, I'm talking to you. You spray way too much, okay? So other people can smell it because of diffusion. Those molecules, those gas molecules, spread throughout the room. Okay? That's equilibrium, where it reaches and all the molecules are equal in the room. Okay? All right, so those are our terms that we needed to know. We're going to move on to the diffusion. And here is a little showing of the molecules moving out until they reach equilibrium. And they kind of are happy in their place. Okay? So this is the first part where you're going to need to take down notes. So you're going to open up your note sheet to this page, and we are right here at the top, number 1, diffusion. Okay? So this is the process by which molecules move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. And you are filling that in right there. Okay? The information that is underlined. So if you need to pause this, you can. But I'm going to keep talking, okay? Again, this does not require energy, and these molecules spread until they reach an equilibrium, okay? When we're talking about a specific type of molecule, we're going to talk about gas molecules like carbon dioxide and oxygen. Remember, these molecules, oxygen needs to get into the cell, carbon dioxide needs to get out of the cell. So again, this doesn't require energy, it just happens because of that concentration gradient. So this is my picture of diffusion. Excuse me. Here is the cell, okay? And I'm just showing different molecules. So I have oxygen, a lot of oxygen outside of the cell. That's in purple, and carbon dioxide is in blue. And there is more carbon dioxide in the cell, less oxygen. So oxygen has more on the outside, higher concentration, and oxygen will move into the cell across the cell membrane. Carbon dioxide, on the other hand, has a lot more inside and will move out to where it's a lower concentration. So you might be wondering, well, how? I know I breathe in, take a deep breath in, right? So I take a deep breath in and I release carbon dioxide, I breathe in oxygen, but how does that oxygen and carbon dioxide get to the top of my head? Down to my toes, from my lungs down to those areas. What do you think? What would allow it to travel? Now think about what travels around in your body. You said blood, you are correct. The blood cells pick up the oxygen, take it to the cells that need it, drop it off, and pick up the carbon dioxide that's produced and return it to the lungs so you can breathe out. And the process continues. Okay? Your body's never really in equilibrium for oxygen and carbon dioxide because your body is always needing oxygen and your cells are always making carbon dioxide as a waste product. So this process goes on and on. In your notes right now, what you're going to do is there is a spot right there, okay, where you are going to draw a picture of diffusion. You can pause the video. You're welcome to draw my picture or draw something of your own, but it should be where molecules are moving from high to low concentrations. Pause the video if you need. All right, moving on. We're going to move into osmosis now. So that is number 2 on your note sheet, number 2. Okay. Osmosis is really the diffusion of water. And so you'll see these little water molecules, they're the little blue ones, moving across this orange cell membrane. So these molecules move across until they reach an equilibrium, till there's an even amount outside of the cell as there is inside of the cell. And you might wonder, why is water so important to move in and out of their cells? Well, you are made up of mostly water. More than half of your body is made up of water. 80% of the cell is water. So it's really important that water is able to move in and out of your cells without the need for energy. Okay? It just happens along that concentration gradient. Again, water moves from high to low. Okay? Now I do have some questions for you. So I get the idea, water's moving high to low. Yes, Mrs. S., I understand that. But let's put this into real world applications. Why would it be important? Let's say this. Hypothetically, let's say you're stranded in the middle of the ocean on a raft. Okay? No food, no fresh water. And you've been stranded there for a week. You haven't drank anything in a week. Now, there's water all around you. What do? Do you drink that salt water? Why wouldn't you want to drink it? Well, if you're thinking that salt dehydrates people, you're correct. What ultimately happens is the water inside your cells would move out of your cells because there would be a higher concentration inside than outside. So you can kind of think about it like the salt is pulling the water out. That's not really what happens, but ultimately there is a higher concentration of water inside, a lower concentration of water outside. So water moves from high to low. So it would move out of your cells, ultimately shriveling your cells up like a raisin, which if your cells die, then your tissues die, then your organs die, and you get the general idea. Okay? So you wouldn't want to drink salt water. Is it okay if you go to the beach and you get knocked over by a wave and swallow salt water? Of course, because you are drinking fresh water and eating foods that have water in it. So that's not a problem. I'm saying if you're stranded for a week and haven't drank anything, you don't want to drink the ocean water, okay? All right, next up, plants. Why would plants, we learned earlier that a major difference between plant and animal cells is that plants have a large vacuole. So why do they have a large vacuole? Think about it in terms of water. What does the vacuole store? If you said the vacuole stores water, you are correct. The vacuole does store water. And the plants rely on the environment to get their water. If it's in a drought, the plants aren't going to get water. So water ultimately would move out of the cells. They rely on that large vacuole as a storage tank and will call upon that storage tank when they need water in times of drought or if you forget about your plant and don't water it for a while. So that's why they have a large vacuole. Animals, we can move and get water when needed. So we don't need such a large vacuole to store water because we can move. But organisms that are sessile or planted in a spot and can't move like a tree, they need to have a large vacuole. So on your papers at the very bottom are the two questions that we just went over. Go ahead and write your answers down. Pause the video as you need, and we're moving on. Last thing about osmosis, again, no energy is required. You are going to draw a picture of osmosis, and I thought what a better way to draw a picture than with our gummy bears. Okay, so here's my little bear in water, and you can imagine him like your cell, because he was our little cell model. I'm not an artist, I know. Looks kind of like a cat bear. That's what we'll call him, okay? There's actually less water. If you remember your gummy bears, they were kind of dehydrated, right? They were squishy, but they weren't plump and full. There is more water outside, less water inside, so water moves from high to low. It's going to move into the bear. That's why your bears got bigger, okay? They were swollen, all right? And it'll ultimately move that way until equilibrium is reached, till there's the same amount of water inside the bear as there is outside the bear. So that's why they got bigger, okay? On your papers, what I want you to do at the top of the next page, you are going to draw a picture of osmosis, and you can do that by drawing a bear, or you can put a cell in there, or you can think of a plant cell. Again, water moves from areas of high to low. So go ahead and pause this if you need, but I'm going to move on. The last thing we're going to talk about is facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion is diffusion, but it's helped. So in this case, on your papers, I have the same picture there. Area of high concentration to area of low. These big pillow-looking things are proteins. They're protein channels or protein doors. You can think of them like that. And the molecule that actually moves by facilitated diffusion is glucose. You use glucose in your body as your food source. That's what travels along in your blood. It's your blood sugar. So if you know any diabetics who have to check their blood sugar, they're checking their glucose levels. And so that blood glucose travels around and can get into your cells that need it by facilitated diffusion. It uses these protein channels and works its way through. No energy is required again. It just happens. It goes from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. All right, please review this as needed. I hope you enjoyed this passive transport, and we'll pick back up with a lab tomorrow.